Renzo, one more time, I selected the expression of today's episode based on what's happening in my real life.
Of course. And I trust your judgment. Also, you have a very interesting life.
Well,
So that
thank
helps,
you.
I think. But wait, expression. What do you mean? What is this? What is this show? Why are we even here? What is this? What are we doing?
This is Just a Spanish Phrase, which is the companion podcast of News in Slow Spanish, where in Just a Spanish Phrase, every week we pick an expression from our huge catalog and we analyze it and we find the uses and the history behind that expression in English. If you go to News in Slow Spanish, you will find a catalog of Spanish expressions used and explained in Spanish.
That's right. If you're learning Spanish, we encourage you, go check out News and Slow Spanish. It's a great way to practice your comprehension and learn new ways of using phrases and learn about the world too, because we're teaching everything through current events. But here, let's have a little fun. So, just a Spanish phrase. Today's phrase is
No llegar a los talones.
no llegar a los talones. Literally, let's translate that as doesn't even reach the heel or the heels.
Yes, which is, of course, it makes no sense when
Not
we
when you
translate word by
literally,
word.
right.
So how would you translate it, like meaning?
Meaning? Well, first, no llegar a los talones is a phrase that we use to say that something simply doesn't measure up, that it's not anywhere near as good as the other thing that it's being compared to. And in English, we do have phrases that express this exact same idea. The best one that I can think of, there are many, but the one that has like a figurative feel to it is doesn't hold a candle to. Like this thing, this, I'm going to use a made up example, but like this brand of chocolate doesn't hold a candle to this other brand of chocolate. Does that make sense?
Yes, like for example, Hershey's doesn't hold a candle to any real Venezuelan cocoa made chocolate.
Made with real chocolate. Ooh, and there's a story there, but let's get back to that in a moment. So Hershey's no le llega a los talones.
El chocolate verdadero, real chocolate, any real chocolate.
Okay, really quick side note. There was there have been many articles in the last few years about the secretive changing of formulas in the candy industry to quietly remove more of cacao from their recipes because the price of cacao has been rising.
Do they even have cacao?
Well, some of them still have, they have to have some trace amount, I guess,
Yeah,
to
I'm
be
not
called
surprised.
chocolate.
Yeah.
But anyway, people are really upset about this. I don't eat a lot of Hershey's. I eat real chocolate.
Good.
I guess I'm a bit of a chocolate snob.
Me too.
But people that do are loyal to these candy bars, they're really upset about the changing flavor.
Oh, I will try. I do like Twix and I do like peanut M&Ms, so I'm gonna try to see if I
guess the test would be you have to find a really old Twix bar from like 15 years ago.
Yeah,
and then
I might not do
compare
that.
it with a recent one.
Okay,
Focusing. So, no le llega ni a los talones.
No le llega a los talones. I picked this expression because it happened to me in real life. I always thought that, you know how I love reading, and I love reading all sorts of books, but for some reason, I've never read Stephen King before.
Oh,
because
interesting.
I don't know why. I thought being so commercial, he probably no le llegaba a los talones to, I don't know, like Garcia Marquez, William Faulkner, Hemingway, etc.
Right, prestige authors.
Exactly.
Yes.
I thought, okay, this guy is commercial, he's horror, he probably is very entertaining, but it's not real literature. So oddly enough, the first book I read from him, written by him, is called On Writing, is all his advice to young writers.
Oh.
And it was very good. I liked it. I like his advice. And it's actually a book I really recommend if you're into writing. And I was like, okay, I'm reading this guy's advice on how to write, but I've never read him.
You need to read one of his works, to understand.
I started reading Misery, and I cannot wait to go back and continue reading. I'm hooked. Not only is very entertaining, is really well written. It's really, really good. So I have to say, I was wrong in thinking that Stephen King no le llegaba a los talones, didn't hold up,
Didn't hold a candle to.
didn't hold a candle to other most prestigious writers.
So it turns out that he did measure up. His work, the quality of his work, his storytelling did hold a candle to some of the other authors.
Not
that you
only
enjoy.
that, he might be even better to some prestigious ones.
That's some praise. Yeah. If you're listening, Stephen, you have a
Yeah,
fan. You have a
exactly.
new fan. No, but
I'm not a fan like the one in Misery. Let me just clarify.
And I understand, though, if someone hadn't read any works by Stephen King, I would understand that assumption because he was so prolific, especially during the main years of his career.
He still is.
He still is. Publishing so often, you'd think, oh, this is mass-produced. This is not going to be very good.
but he clarifies in that book, he doesn't write for money. He sits down and writes at least 2,000 words every single day. So I started doing that. I'm doing like the King's technique. We'll see what happens. But it's very inspiring book.
If yo no le llego ni a los talones. I can't hold a candle to that.
Well, I don't either, but hey, at least I'm trying.
That's great.
But this made me think of many other examples of, for example, political leaders from the present.
Oh, we could go down a deep, deep rabbit hole with this one. Very quickly, before we do, because I like this direction. What is the origin of this phrase?
You tell me.
Okay, so another popular wisdom expression, the abuelita expressions that we talk about. There are some theories connecting it to some mythology, and I'll get to that in a second. But very, very simply put, it's the idea that stature, literal stature, represented achievement, represented power, represented worth. And so the idea was, by comparing two people, for example, person A no le llega ni a los talones to person B, saying person A is so small, they're so small in stature that they can't even measure up to the heels of this other person.
Maybe that's why we have so many dictators that are short, because they had to prove themselves twice.
Hey, apparently I'm a short king. As a not very tall person, I resent that a little. I'm not going to be a
you
tyrant.
You are tall. I mean, I'm talking about Napoleon was famous for being very short. I think others too. Let's not name names.
Oh, well, definitely some leaders out there that are lying about their height. But the Napoleon complex is an expression for another episode. Back to the heels, los talones. Another variation is this, and this one's brutal. This one's really vicious. No le llega ni a la suela de los zapatos. So this is so small, so insignificant, so weak that it doesn't even reach the bottom of my shoes.
Wow.
Yeah. Those are some strong words. So that's where it comes from. The comparing stature as a metaphor for value, for worth, for achievement, and then saying, well, this by comparison is so small that it doesn't even reach the heel.
Well, I don't know about, let's not talk about the persons, but the ideas. But I feel the debates in the past were much better than the debates nowadays.
Debates
the political
like political
conversations.
Debates? The discourse. Yes, I agree with you 100%. We used to have decorum. We used to have really smart orators.
Exactly. And I think today you watch a presidential debate and it no le llega a los talones to the presidential debates you used to watch before, where it was great ideas, very eloquently expressed.
Yes. I will say, and perhaps this is part of the problem, that you can watch something like that today and it is perhaps more entertaining in a gladiatorial sense, because people are insulting each other. Bread and circus, exactly. But where's the substance?
Exactly.
No le llega ni a los talones. And speaking of talones, I did mention really quickly, I don't want to forget, that I would say there's perhaps a little mythological connection. Achilles' heel. You're familiar with the myth. So there are some people that speculate that the Achilles heel is the reason that they chose el talón, the heel, for this expression, because it's like saying you're so weak and insignificant and worthless that you don't even compare to my weakest point, the
Very
heel.
interesting.
So that perhaps is why it was the heel that was chosen to represent, like, what it could have been any other body part, lower down on the body, but the heel because of Achilles.
Very interesting. And unfortunately, we ran out of time. So some political leaders were saved by the bell.
They were spared? Oh, no, we'll come back.
Okay.
We'll get them next time.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Adios.